connect with ourselves, with each other, and with Source. Today's meditation and prayer will be a little bit different than usual. It may be a little woo-woo for some of you, but just play along. Matter, all physical things, are made of energy. There's more to it than that, but that's all we need to know for today. Love, all emotions really, are also energy. Again, there's more to it, but that's the important part for today. The core foundational premise of A Course in Miracles states that only love is real. The Course opens with the guiding principle that truth is unalterable and eternal. Nothing real can be threatened, and nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of the divine. The text teaches that fear and judgment are just illusions, while love is the only eternal reality. Now back to matter and energy. Since 2007, the Church Within has called this building home. In those 19 years, just imagine all of the love and the gratitude, hope, creativity, inspiration that's taken place here. If love is energy and physical matter is energy, then I believe that all of that good stuff that has happened here has seeped into and become part of this physical structure. Now comes the woo-woo part. If you're willing and able, I ask you to leave your seat. And if you want to stay in your seat, that's fine too. But if you're willing, just go somewhere else in the room, and I'll give you instructions once you get there. And again, if you stay in your seat, that's totally fine. Now place a hand on a wall or a door or the stage or the piano or the sound console or whatever. And if you're in your seat, you're already touching a chair and the floor. And once you've found your spot and made that connection, I invite you, if you're comfortable, to close your eyes and take a deep, full breath with me. If you can, think of just one moment, one event, one message, one conversation here in this building that stands out to you as being filled with love. If you can remember the details, such as where you were in the building or who you were with or what was being said, that's great. But primarily, I want you to remember that feeling of love. With each breath, allow that feeling of love to grow in your mind and let it fill your body. Let it grow beyond your body to the space around you. And let it go into whatever it is you're touching. Send it into the atoms of this building. As I continue, stay where you are and continue to breathe and generate the love into the space around you and into the building. Here are a couple phrases from the Southeast Community Services website. We believe every person is creative, resourceful, and whole. I'm going to say that again. We believe every person is creative, resourceful, and whole. Our work is grounded in relationships, dignity, and the belief that everyone deserves the opportunity to thrive. While the words and the specific services that they provide are different, that sounds a lot like the church within to me. Now imagine a few months or even years from now, people walking through these same doors, people standing on these same floors, families, children, older adults, attending workshops and trainings, being treated with dignity, receiving love, and leaving with hope. Send those people that love that we've been generating here as the work will continue in a different form. Take another deep cleansing breath and allow your mind to return to the here and the now, and you can open your eyes if they were closed. I wasn't here then, but in 2007, I imagined that there was some sort of dedication or commissioning of the building. Often when a church leaves a building, there is a decommissioning service or ceremony declaring that it's no longer a sacred space and that mundane, normal things can happen here. That seems counter to who we are to me. I'd like to imagine that we are recommissioning this building to continue our work in a different way. You may return to your seats, unless you're a board member. If you're a board member, please come up here. And I know we're missing at least one. Pat couldn't be here today. Are there? Heather and Heather and Kevin.
And where's Vicky?
She's down here.
She's there.
All right.
Okay.
These people, along with many others of you, have been working tirelessly over the past several months as we've navigated a lot of changes. They've had many more meetings than usual. They've had hard conversations and made difficult decisions. They've definitely been putting in a lot of overtime on a job that doesn't actually pay them any money. Please join me in a prayer for these wonderful humans. Beloved Divine, God that we know by many names and see in many faces, our prayer today is for these board members and everyone who has been putting in long hours and stretching themselves to their limits. We pray for their peace of mind and confidence that the decisions that have been made are the best ones. We pray for their hearts, souls, and bodies, for rest and restoration. We are so very grateful for each of them and for all that they have given during this time of growth, and so it is. Thank you all. The church within was founded on prayer, and we still hold that to be very important. If you have prayer needs, you may submit those at thechurchwithin.org or place them in one of the prayer boxes here in the building. And if you have a desire for prayer today, I'm happy to do that with you after service here at the front.
Thank you, Jeffrey. And now, our main speaker for today, our message giver, is Jayne Kercheval. Welcome.
Thank you. I was told today why I was asked to give today's message. I hadn't volunteered, but Donna Jo had a thought that because I think I'm the longest member that's still active in the church, she thought it might be appropriate. So here I am. I want to do what Jeffrey just did, thanking Betty and Jeffrey and Mark and Renee for being on the team today and serving. That's as much a part of the love that goes on here as the person who gives the message. So thank you all for being on my team. Especially big kudos for Mark, who'll be back after a while, for playing the opening and closing songs that seem to fit with today's special occasion that I picked. Don't you love it where you go where everybody knows your name? That came to me last Saturday at the barbecue, and I thought, I know what it's a theme for, but the church also fits, so he made it happen. And if we don't know your name when you walk in, we slap a name tag on you. So we do know your name. Let's take a breath together as we begin. First, I'd like to share a Rumi quote, translation of course, that popped up this week. Because as you know, there are messages that come when they're supposed to come to us. And this one said, try not to, though Yoda said there is no try, only do, so I'm changing it a little bit. Do not resist the changes that come your way. Instead, let life live through you. And do not worry that your life is turning upside down. How do you know that the side you're used to is better than the one to come? I think that's kind of perfect as we're moving to a new side, as it were. Another meme that popped up this week was from a site on Facebook called Whispers, WHISPRS. They put the Rumi quotes out, and then they have some of their own quotes, and they don't say where they get them. Maybe they make them up, but some of them are really good. This one said, imagine reading a book with no way to turn back the page. How carefully would you read it? That's life. Every moment passes once. Every word leaves a mark. So choose what matters before it becomes a memory. When I read that, it gave me pause. Sometimes I blank out when I'm reading a book, and I have to turn back, try to focus more, reread the page, reread the paragraph. And that whole process, yes, I'm getting some nods over here, so I'm not the only one. And I've learned in life, whatever I'm going through, I'm not the only one. We're all human, so we all have a lot of similar experiences. But that concept of not being able to turn back made me think about those words a little more deeply, about all the words, the events, the moments that transpired here at the church within, not only in this building, but in the previous locations. And I asked myself, how carefully did I pay attention? Did I blank out very much? I do have memories, and I know you do too. I think, and maybe this is a little woo-woo, but we actually retain everything in some file in our brain cells that we hear, we experience, whatever. It's all there somewhere. Sometimes the file's a little hard to open and get it out to share, but it's there somewhere. We just can't access what's stored. But on some level, mostly unconsciously, those stored lessons affect how we make our daily life decisions, how we show up in the world. One of the most powerful lessons for me from all these many years, and it's been over 30 since the church was founded, has been to show up in the world as love in every situation. I am not always successful in doing that. I'm still working on what that looks like for me. When I'm offering something from what I think is a place of love, sometimes it's not always perceived as love by the recipients. I do believe with all my heart, mind, and soul that we are all one. And yet sometimes I fail to grasp that oneness and see what's happening from the other being's perspective. I'm still learning. For today's message, I wanted to look at some of the main things I have learned, things I have packed to take with me on my life's journey and the journey to our new facility, our new church within. Feel free to take any ideas that I pop out that resonate with you too. Now, packing per se is not something that I enjoy. It's not high on my list of things that are fun. And I'm guessing the TCW board members and a few others may have some similar feelings right now. And yet it's a necessary thing sometimes. The first time I had to pack a suitcase, I think I was 15 for band camp. And I'm pretty sure we were given a list of necessities that you were supposed to take for that week-long summer camp. I'm also sure my mother said, do it yourself. It wasn't a hard task because I had the list to follow. When it was time to unpack at camp, I knew what was in my suitcase. I knew exactly where it was because I'd put it there. But I listened to the girls around me complaining that they couldn't find things. And at the time I wondered, who packed for you? The same story applies here. You get to pack for you. You get to decide what is necessary to take on your journey of life and the church within. I imagine we've all packed suitcases for trips, boxes packed for moving or donation drops. We've packed lunches for work or retreats. We've packed the car for recycling drops. I've even packed my head full of things I wanted to learn. Deciding what to talk about today gave me lots to think about. And as Reverend Scott Lakin said last week, Reverend Judith taught him that when we give a message, it's always about something we need to hear, the speaker needs to hear, to learn ourselves. That was something actually that our founding pastor, Reverend Louise, taught the ministers she trained. And there was a slew of us. We had to learn for ourselves what we needed to share, but we also knew there were other people listening who needed to hear the message. More than once, I felt that Reverend Louise was talking directly to me with her messages, and I thought, how dare you? But we all know we're human, and so there's something that's always said that we can grasp onto that pertains to us and something that resonates. I almost titled the talk, The 3 Things I Am Taking With Me, thinking I'd use the 3 tenets on the wall. Then I thought, well, maybe there's a unique key, something personal that I can take from each of the 3 pastors we've had. And then my OCD kicked in. I was like, we haven't had 3 pastors, we've actually had 5. So I had to adjust my thinking because I couldn't just do 3. And I decided to go with that and see what would emerge, and I sat down at the computer, and here we are. Let's take a breath. Reverend Louise founded this church because her heart ached that she had friends who were being shunned and shamed by various religions and their churches. She herself had been raised a Roman Catholic and was a nun for a period of time. She learned that her love for people and wanting to help them didn't mesh with the way the church required nuns to live. She left the convent, she went to Unity, became a choir director there, fell in love with a widower and his kids, married, and then was later ordained and founded this church. She needed a bigger God than the other religions offered that didn't limit her loving of others or judge her friends. The church within was created to be open and welcoming to all people because all people are holy. Not one of the ministers ordained through this church has, to my knowledge, ever told anyone that there was a specific God, or any God for that matter, that they had to accept and believe in. The message I heard was to listen to a person's sharing about the God that they were taught about, but maybe weren't happy with, then invite that person to a bigger, more loving God without judgment. And they can name the God whatever they chose. In the early years, A Course in Miracles gave me a new way to see and think about the world and to think about what the Jewish teacher Jesus really came to teach the people of the world. We weren't here to convert people to a specific belief system, but rather to help them find the love, the divinity that existed within themselves, then choose how they wanted to manifest that, how they wanted to show up in the world. Let's take another breath. On to our second message bringer, Reverend Yvonne Brandenburg, who instilled in me the importance of community, not just the people that showed up here on Sunday mornings, but the actual community where we located ourselves, the importance of the people who lived around the church. She's the reason this church moved to Fountain Square, to this building, which was in a neighborhood. That was a big change from an industrial warehouse. Reverend Yvonne got us involved with the actual Fountain Square neighbors who needed our kindness and love and sometimes food and water. When I was thinking about that, Roy came to mind, and that's a whole nother story. Some of you remember who Roy was. That's why we had so many tools in the storage room. The church within at that time donated gifts at Christmas, sponsoring a party when a bank dropped their sponsorship. We took over. We may have even sent a Santa Claus. Mark may have done that, but I remember we took care of everything. Reverend Yvonne was good at inviting people in, getting people to volunteer to get things done. She was also known for her slips of the tongue. We called them Vonisms, and everybody chuckled when they came out of her mouth, and she was like, "What are you laughing at?" She and her husband, Reverend Calvin, taught a couple more ministerial classes, and more members of the church were ordained. However, everyone was reminded that we are all ministers, whether you're ordained or not, and that applies to each of you sitting here and listening today. Quick aside, last Sunday, in honor of Reverend Judith's 87th birthday, what would have been her 87th birthday, a group of us who used to work for the gay and lesbian switchboard as volunteers, answering phones to help people in crisis or to find local services that were friendly to gay and lesbian people. We got together to toast her and to catch up. We don't get together very much anymore, but there were 10 of us. And one of the stories that emerged, because half of the people in the room had come through this church at one time or another, but Joe said, "I just couldn't stay at the church we're in because there were more ministers than there were congregants." Yep. And if you weren't ordained here, we still had a lot of people who came in who were already ordained other places, and they just felt comfortable being a part of this community. A personal life lesson Reverend Yvonne helped me to come to grips with was something that she said to me on a trip on Mexico that the church participated in. And I don't remember the exact words, but paraphrased it was, "Jayne, the universe is not out to get you. It's trying to give you what you want. Pay attention." Took me a while to fully internalize that. And there are still days I forget. When Reverend Yvonne retired, the board did what the church within just did, advertised that there was a leadership position open. Let's take a breath. An outside person, in other words, somebody who I don't believe had ever attended a church within service or event, was hired. Richard Brandenburg was short-lived here. Brandon. Let me fix that. Thank you. Not Brandenburg. That was Yvonne's name. Okay. Richard was short-lived here. It's a Jainism? Yeah, thank you. I learned 2 important lessons while he was here. You can't make people change if they don't want to. And no matter how eloquent your presentation, it's not healthy to preach to people and at people. You have to walk your talk. End of story. Let's take a breath. The board then humbly asked Reverend Darren Chittick to take over. He had been runner-up in the application process. Reverend Darren wisely made it clear that he had certain conditions and the board agreed to them. I don't remember what those conditions were, but obviously it worked out. During Reverend Darren's tenure, I grew a lot spiritually because he called me out when I screwed up. Darren and I had been friends long before here as interpreters in the community. And in fact, when he first started coming to the church over on West 79th Street, I thought he was deaf. He was signing all the time with the deaf people who were coming. And then one day he said something to somebody verbally, and I was like, "You're hearing?" And he was like, "Well, yeah." I said, "Why are you signing all the time?" He said, "Because I'm trying to learn the language." And I'm like, "Okay, good deal." That was Darren. Darren consistently introduced new concepts, at least to me they were new, from various spiritual teachings. He was an eclectic spiritual leader. There were a plethora of lists from Buddhism, right? And I don't remember any of the lists exactly, but there were lists. And from Judaism, he brought us tikkun olam. That's the central Jewish concept for repairing or healing the world. It reflects the idea that the world is broken and humans are partners with the divine in fixing it through acts of social justice, charity, and ethical living. I'm still constantly asking myself, what is mine to do to help the world that touches me? Darren's messages consistently brought new words to us with challenging ideas. He taught me words like bricolier. Anybody remember that one? Yeah. He was one, and still is. In the creative academic world, it refers to a creator who cobbles things together, ideas, concepts, or artistic materials from a diverse, miscellaneous range of sources. And he's very good at that. In everyday usage, it's a handyman or handywoman. I think he mentioned creating art and utilitarian things from the dump heap of life. I embrace being a bricklayer myself. For me, everything has a purpose, a place. You all know I'm big on recycling, repurposing, upcycling, making sure things don't end up in the real dump if possible. I'm looking forward to meeting another woman this week. Linda Bell, too, introduced me via a call this week. She's at the National Women's Music Festival, and she met up with a friend, longtime friend, who's from, I think, Columbus, Indiana. Anyway, this gal is a recycler, repurposer, upcycler, everything. I'm looking forward to meeting her. She has said she wants the whole stage. She will repurpose every part of it somehow. So I'm thrilled that Jeffrey did a blessing of this facility today. It's not only a sacred place that will continue to serve the community and envelop everyone who comes through the doors with love, but everything that we touched, everything that we thought about today will find a purpose in the community, and our love will be in places we would never imagine. She may take the lighting, she may take the curtains, the backdrop, and the mirrors if they come off the wall. So I'm sure anything left by August 1st, I will check with her to see if she can take those, and we can avoid having a sale. I think I'm going to like her. Another word I learned through Darren's friend, Christopher Nunn. I learned that an ordinary thing can become a focal point of attention. Something can be curated. I've become a curator of objects in my home that were just sitting around or even in boxes. I've learned to appreciate the odds and ends that I've collected with a new perspective. We've done that here at the Church Within. Jeffrey curated the history of the Church Within display last fall. Then last Friday, he and Kathy Fletcher recurated that whole wall for the visitors that came on Saturday. Remember today to take the items that you brought, and then we'll figure out how to archive the rest. There are a myriad of things packed away in my heart and mind that came from Reverend Darren's messages, as well as the life that he modeled for us. Do you remember the message he shared that he'd been shopping in the wintertime, and when he came outside, there was a man with no shoes? Darren gave him his shoes. That's the kind of spiritual leader that inspired me for many years. Darren walked his talk. And another big thing he taught us is, let's take a breath. Lastly, the interim message bringer last year was Reverend Tyne. They challenged me to think and be clear about my own spiritual beliefs. My spiritual life was easier to do with Reverend Darren because mostly I could say yes to whatever he was bringing to us without thinking about it. And if we butted heads, we talked about it. When that changed for me, I really had to look deeper into my own spiritual path. If you heard my talk last October, you'll remember I was ready to move on from the direction of this church that it seemed to be taking. My spirit just could not find a connection here. Not because I wasn't getting my own way, but because I could no longer support the specific changes being called forth. Things change. I know that. The church within community seemed to be changing, and I couldn't relate to those changes. Subsequently, our small community did a split. Let's take a breath. And here we are, now leaving this building and starting afresh with a new spiritual leader. Congrats to Dan Stringham, say it again. Marquist. Another Jainism. Marcusburg. That's a cool one. Thank you, Mary. I'll just make it up. If you didn't read the email message, please do. What Dan sent was very heartfelt, it was very motivating, it was beautiful. My heart was warmed by his words, and I look forward to the next stages of the journey with you all, with him leading us part-time. And let's not overwhelm him. Let's all pitch in, we find an administrative assistant, and we all do this together as we have been. You are all people I consider my friends. I also consider you my family. I was thinking last night, if I needed something, I'd probably pick up the phone and call Don before I'd call a family member. So thank you. Thank you all for being my friends. And to end, I'd like to share a Japanese legend that popped up on Facebook this week. You meet the people you're meant to meet, not by accident, not by chance, but by something your souls agreed to keep. Some will come to heal you. Some will come to break you. But the ones who stay through both are the ones who are written in your heart. You, all of you, are written in my heart. And I hope you'll sing along with Mark's next song.